In early December of last year, one of my camp chairs broke. It got me to thinking about all the broken pieces we see all around us. In my mind, I wanted to make fun of some of these things. Changing gears from the camp chair for a moment, look at all these pieces. All these pieces are comprised of things that I've found in a variety of locations, like this piece of wire I discovered while on a recent walk in the neighborhood. And many of these washers are from many previous walks in this same neighborhood. I also have a variety of tools that have come with certain items that were to be assembled, and for whatever reason, all of these included tools have just led to having a bunch of duplicates, extras. And then there are the more obscure pieces, some that I don't know what they were used for or where they came from, and others that I've happened upon from eons ago in the days when I used to go rock hounding with my grandfather. As you look at this piece, what do you see? Does it look like a letter? Can you see turning this piece of yesteryear's object into something fun for today? I can, but first I need to bring order to all these pieces so that I can start to use my imagination and see where these materials should be applied. While I'm sorting these pieces, let's think back to that camp chair that I sent in for repair. That sheared off aluminum brace. I wonder what became of it. Oh, hey, look at this. So these are busted guitar strings. I generally try to save those things, thinking that I might be able to use them. I've got a wire twisting tool. It's really good for making bails. I've got some pliers for twisting harder wire. And I've generally got at least 2 or even 3 wire cutting tools on hand. I know these topics sound unrelated, but really, what became of that aluminum brace on that chair that I sent in for repair? I'm curious about it, because with all these parts that seem like trash to someone else, I can arrange them in different ways and literally make something fun out of these pieces. While we're on the topic of these pieces, look at all these extra bolts and wrenches. Think about all the different things we've ever purchased that have come with items like this. And then imagine that with your membership to whatever place you ordered these items from, that also included an exchange service where these items could be sent back so that they could be reused by somebody else. Imagine how much less waste we would create. And look again at all these pieces that I've found, many of them right from the neighborhood that I'm in. So I've slowed down the video so you can see my decision-making process. I know instantly, based on the pieces that I have, that I want to make something that looks like the letter F out of this screw that you see here and the partial horseshoe. And so I'm looking at the bends that are already in the wire, and I'm thinking that those are already helpful. And so this is the wire that I'm going to end up using to create the letter F. There's a Nirvana song where Kurt Cobain sings the line, "I don't have to think, I only have to do it. The results are always perfect, but that's old news." And in this particular case, it seems like I only have to do what's on my mind. I don't really have to think about it. I just naturally begin to assemble the pieces as they were presented to me, and it starts to give me ideas as far as how I can bind this wood screw to the partial horseshoe. And clearly I'm going to use this wire. It'll be a lot easier than using the guitar wire because of how bendy it is. And so that's what I'm doing right here. I'm bending the wire to try and make an F out of this combination of pieces. Similarly to that busted chair leg, I began to wonder if some of these busted and or incomplete pieces couldn't also be used for something a little bit more fun and or repurposed in a way that was energy friendly. What I mean by that is we talk a lot about recycling, but we don't always consider how many resources it takes to recycle something. Like for an example, that one bottle of water that you might choose to take with you between lines might cost so many resources in the forms of water, energy, and people's actual activities, that it might not be cost productive to actually try to think about recycling. Maybe we might need to think about not using these types of items in the future, and or figuring out how to repurpose them starting now. So I've got the majority of my letter F completed. I'm going to tighten that screw a little bit later, but since the piece is self-supporting, now I need to look at making an N, because I've already got a U, and you'll see that in the finished product here. But here you've got some tools that I was describing earlier, and a bolt. And the wrenches that you see here came with a pull-up station that we recently assembled. And the interesting thing is, we didn't really need these wrenches at all. But think about it. What if someone who ordered this type of an item checked a box? Kind of like we can do at a restaurant, where you either choose to receive cutlery with your order, or you choose not to use those tools. But either way, you still have the option to receive them in the event that you didn't have them to begin with. And then imagine being able to return those items, like these wrenches that you see me working with here, instead of just blindly manufacturing more and more of these already plentiful items that exist probably globally at this point. But either way, I'm having fun with these wrenches, monkeying around with them and making the letter N from these items that I have in front of me. The bolt that is being used was found in the neighborhood, as was the wire that you see me using to make a binding between this bolt and the wrenches. This wire is quite hard, but I find using it kind of like turning objects into Legos. Basically, the wire helps me to connect things that were previously seemingly somewhat unrelated. Speaking of being unrelated, are you guys having fun watching what I'm using and how I'm trying kind of clumsily to match these pieces up together? Well, thankfully, due to the power of technology, I was able to cut out quite a bit of the fumbling around and show you the end result of putting this first part of the letter N together for you. The pieces are almost self-supporting, and that's how I know when it's almost ready to go. And by self-supporting, I mean basically I can find a point where I can hold the item and it holds together on its own. And you can see that here as I'm holding just the wrench and showing you how this letter is about to be assembled. And what I'm showing you here is the imagination process. I've already taken the first wrench off just to make it easier for me to try to think of ways to bind this bolt onto the wrench. And you can see I've hesitated here. It's because I think I'm missing a piece. There's a joining piece that's missing. And I'm looking through the pieces that I have on hand. The piece that I have that I'm messing with right now doesn't look like it's going to be the best. And I do have in mind that if this bolt had a head on the other end, then I would be able to take care of this situation. So after almost absent-mindedly fumbling around with these pieces, just so I can kind of try to better envision what the end result should be, I decide that I am probably going to have to resort to having another piece available, and it's going to be a complete long shot that I have a bolt that fits that I have a nut that fits a bolt that I found walking through the neighborhood one day. So I'm going to put this down and try to find what fits. So I walked out to the garage carrying that bolt with me, thinking of what a long shot it might be to find the corresponding nut, but check this out. Now, this nut doesn't exactly fit, but it fits just enough to be the missing piece, basically. So are you guys seeing the letter N take shape here, or is it just me imagining it? Let me know in the comments below. By now, some of you might have just fallen asleep because this video is just so downright soothing. Well, let me tell you, it's a little bit treacherous working with twisted wire and twisted guitar wire and rusted bolts and things like that. So I had to pay attention while I was making this letter for all of our fun. Next, I took some of that remaining wire and began to try to imagine how much it would take to bind these two pieces together. The more I measured, the more I found that it was going to take exactly the whole length of this remaining wire, which makes sense because the other portion of it is on the letter F. So to keep these pieces together throughout this build process made a lot of sense. So now it's just a matter of feeling out the right weave pattern. I also discovered that the wire needed another twist before it would become secure enough to hold the wrench that I was about to bind to this bolt. Once the wire was secured properly, I resumed the process of binding the wrench to this bolt. And even though it's not yet secured, you'll begin to see immediately how much more stable this setup is. So at this point, what I'm doing is balancing these two items against one another and also using the wire to kind of solidify the position that this piece or these pieces will be joined together to form the letter N. Now that I've got the shape approximately right, what I am doing is twisting the wires to finalize the position of these legs in the letter N. So what do you think? Do you see it coming together yet? I do. So now I send the pieces off for final assembly, and by sending the pieces off, I mean moving these to the location where they're going to be installed. I wanted to use the minimum amount of hardware possible, just like in this letter U, and to keep things consistent, I used nails that I found from the walks throughout this neighborhood itself. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoy the finished product here. Check it out closely. Let me know what you think in the comments area. Thanks everyone for helping me make fun today. And thanks to Helinox for helping us to keep things out of the landfills. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.